We can come up from here. It's easier than going down.
That's what she said.
Oh, gosh.
It's going to be that kind of day, folks.
I know it. Let's kick this mule. Welcome back. You are hanging out with Queer Necks, where we talk about what it's been like growing up queer from Central Appalachia. I am your host, Dash.
I am your other host, Beck.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, everybody.
What you been doing today? You said you went up and got something to eat.
Yeah, we went to Bob Evans and got some breakfast. It was got the farmer's market or whatever it was called. It was good. Their hash browns and their French toast are real good.
The whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, we were craving breakfast. We went to a little place called Dale's here in Waterville, and they were so packed that we ended up leaving. So we were like, we were going to go to the Waffle House, but they were packed. So we went to Bob Evans. That's the trifecta of biscuits and gravy.
Oh, God, I miss just food, you know? There, like I said before, there are a couple little, they call them diners, like home food style diners, but they just don't do it. There's not the kind of thing you can normally depend on here to do it. There aren't Waffle Houses or Denny's or anything like that. I was craving a fucking White Castle earlier.
That's something we disagree on. I love White Castle. Shannon does not like it. She calls it stinky burger.
It is fragrant.
Yeah, but it's delicious. And it goes perfect. If you eat fries with ketchup with it, it is one of the most delicious things in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's
that's the whole white trash flavor palette right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all of it. Especially if you get it with a Coke or a sweet tea.
Yeah.
Did y'all make sweet tea? Did you make your own?
That's another thing Shanna is big on. She cracked McDonald's recipe. She can make sweet tea that tastes like McDonald's sweet tea. But she's always been a sweet tea drinker. I'm weird. I drink water pretty much 24/7. I'm boring, I know.
I drink flavored seltzer water constantly, just bubbly or LaCroix or whatever I can find. And I don't know what that is. I heard it's common amongst recovering alcoholics, though, actually. Just some of that muscle memory.
What about you? What have you been up to?
It's cold and raining here. I don't know if summer happens in Minnesota necessarily. I've been sitting in here with the heat on and sweats on, and it's depressing.
Yeah. It's kind of chilly here today, too, and raining. I hope it rains so hard. Tomorrow is the day of the military parade, and I hope D.C. freaking floods. I hope there's thunderstorms galore.
Man, that would be so funny. Did you see the Kennedy Center thing, what happened there?
Oh, yeah, the line of drag queens.
The drag performers,
they were perfect. They were perfect.
It was so kind.
Yes, that's why I love drag queens, because you can always count on them for the snark.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
I mean, yeah, snark and shade, all of those things that are so central to queer culture, but drag culture in particular, they're art forms unto themselves. Central Appalachian or Southern American dialects, they're also pretty shady. So people communicate here through passive aggression.
Yeah, the Minnesota nice.
Yeah. And they're aware of it. This isn't breaking news. And it's difficult for me to keep up with sometimes because passive aggression and shade are actually super different. Passive aggression is like, it's possible for everybody except the speaker to be totally clueless on what's going on. Shade only works if everybody's clear on what's being said or unsaid,
Toledo has this Facebook page called Nosy Asses of Toledo. And basically all the gossip that goes down there, if there's a fight at McDonald's, somebody's posting about it, just all the drama that happens in Toledo.
That is red as hell.
Oh, it's hilarious. Like, so wrong sometimes. But there's a drag queen here that owns a food truck. It's a macaroni and cheese food truck, and it's called Maybe Cheese Born With It. Yeah. And so this drag queen was out of drag. They were just in their normal boy drag, right? And they were at the gas station, and they whipped in on this girl and stole her spot. And this girl came out and pepper sprayed her. And the girl got arrested and she got charged and blah, 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 blah. But it's really interesting to see everybody taking the drag queen side because it got caught on film. He was filming it the whole time that it happened.
Yeah.
But it's honorary redneck, I think the whole situation is.
Yeah, absolutely. There's redneck shit everywhere. It's just they won't be aware of the fact that it's red.
Right.
And that's what's funny about it. I would not have the wherewithal to start filming if some fucked up shit was happening to me. I'd just ball up and take it.
I'm glad they did film it, though, because it totally, proved that they were right. They were not in her face. They just had a disagreement over whose spot it was. That does not give you the right to get out and pepper spray me.
Absolutely not.
You
know how often people who deserve to be punched don't get punched?
Yeah.
It's just, we don't get to act like that.
I think you should get 3 horn honks per month.
Mm.
And use them wisely.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty aggressive too.
The people that drive crazy here. Like, I was almost in an accident today on our way back to the house. It was slow traffic, and a car cut off in front of me, and I slammed on my brakes, and the car behind me had to slam on his brakes, and he had to swerve around me. And he started flipping me off like crazy, like I was the one that caused it.
People here drive like they have never had a place to be in their lives.
They drive like their hair is on fire here.
I mean, there's something kind of red about that too. Like just driving, like I drive like a redneck. I know that. I want to get moving. I like my movements to be efficient, and unless I'm joyriding, which I don't really do that often here because it's not pretty.
I'm just afraid somebody's going to go batshit and like
it's a danger.
We were driving down the road like a year ago, and somebody threw a full water bottle out the window at my car as we were driving. I didn't let him over, and he didn't like it.
That just made me think, you know how sports and like hometown rivalries are such a thing?
Yeah.
And I know that it is not exclusive to isolated areas of Central Appalachia, but it is very much a small town thing with these local rivalries. So I was a turncoat, right? Because we were from Tennessee, but we went to school in Kentucky. And anytime our Kentucky school played our old school at any sport, we felt like we really had to prove that we were on our current side now. But anyway, there was a basketball game and it was real close, right? It was a nail biter. And we were standing right on court side. It was like this massive upset that, the Kentucky school we went to won at the last second. And everybody was hooting and hollering and cheering like it actually fucking mattered or something. Because it did. It mattered to us at the moment.
Right.
And I suddenly feel something hit me really hard on the back of the head. It was very heavy, and I felt like wet, it splooshed on me, whatever it was. And then I smelled it, and I looked down and saw it, and it was a Mountain Dew bottle full of dip spit.
Oh.
That's never leaving my mind. Like, you know what? If I could eternal sunshine myself, that's what I'd take out.
Oh.
And we were in Tennessee. We had to drive back home. I had to drive myself and the kids and the friends that they had brought with them back home wearing this.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that was fucking foul. Like 0 stars.
Oh, that's crazy. I'm sorry that happened.
That's kind of like, that is a redneck experience, though. It's like the weirdest shit will happen to you. You'll be telling your normal friends about it, and they don't have a context. Something like that is even possible.
Right. You're like, haha, isn't that hilarious? And they're like, that is such trauma.
I mean, it's both. But
yeah. Do you know how much trauma it took to be this funny?
Significant amount. I think that's why gay people are funnier than straight people.
Yeah.
I think that's
agree
why
with that completely.
Poor people are funnier than rich people, and Appalachian folks are funnier than the general public.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of an appropriate story to tell, and everything I'm thinking of is inappropriate. Like my cousin Dale. Well, we don't need to talk about Dale.
Well,
I was talking about my friend today. I have a friend who has adopted 5 children, all from one family, all from one mother. And there's 4 girls and 1 little boy. And the little boy, she posts little different things about them. And the little boy has some kind of degenerative eye issue. And he had been having some trouble with school. And my friend is an elementary school teacher. And he had been having some trouble. And it wasn't for a lack of trying. And they took him to the doctor and checked his eyes. And he has something happening where it was really difficult to focus on paper with both eyes, and he has to have a surgery and blah, 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 blah. If he had never been adopted, can you imagine the kind of life that he would have had, where that would have led to be doing poorly in school, which would have probably led to behavior issues, which probably would have led to dropping out or whatever, and having no future or whatsoever. But by getting adopted, that has changed his whole future. Getting something as simple as an eye exam.
Yeah, that kind of, and that is something that happened when I was growing up. We never knew that I had dyslexia, or that I was hearing impaired, or that I had audio processing disorder, because I assumed that my senses were working the same way everybody's were, and everybody just accuses kids of not paying attention,
right,
or of talking back, or they reached a point where I was like absolutely failing all my classes. I went from straight A student to I could not comprehend what was being said. Because as I got older, the dyslexia especially, and not being able to actually understand what was being said, I think that people started to think I was stupid. And I went through a nonverbal period because I was so frustrated with communication, because I felt like the margin of error was so high, and I just was so stressed out all the time I stopped talking. And then my dad, when we were homeless, the first time when we were in that Tannery Hollow house, he happened to be home. He wasn't home a lot at the time. And he was like, I forget what he said, but he was just like, we really miss talking to you. Like, we miss you talking. And I just remember thinking like, oh, this is negatively affecting people, because that wasn't my intention. I wasn't trying to punish anybody. I was just so done with not being able to understand things. And I was trying to like collect data, I guess. I thought maybe if I just am real quiet and pay very close attention, I'll be able to understand what's being said. But then that's when they transferred us schools, and that school, like, they noticed that I was failing spelling tests. But if we did a spelling bee, I would win it. So they're like, okay, it's not that. Something's going on. I wouldn't have been at college. I'd have probably been dead too if we had not transferred schools.
Yeah.
Because nobody at Jellicoe gave a fuck of what was going on with me, like what was causing it.
We moved when I was in 6th grade. My brother got into a pretty big fight. He got jumped. He tried to sell fake drugs to the wrong person. And he was only 3 years older than me. So he was 14, 15 years old. And he was already trying to sell fake drugs to the wrong people. And he got his ass whipped, and my mom got scared and said, you're moving to your auntie.
God damn it. I was just about to do that too.
So my mom got really scared because he did that. So we moved out to Lucasville. It was Halloween, and I started school. That's why I started out there. And I think that was really kismet too, because I got kind of bullied in Portsmouth. I remember very clearly, they would have overnight stays at the YMCA, and all the kids would come in and they would lock us in, and we'd play basketball and do all the different things at the YMCA. One girl stole my underwear one night and put it up on the bulletin board. She had it out for me. She was always doing shit like that to me. Mm-hmm. And I was my brother's everybody knew my brother and sister. They were very well known. And plus my parents owned the porn shop, right? So I had a lot of marks against me. Yeah. So we moved out to Lucasville. Nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew my family. Nobody knew my brother. It was fantastic.
Freedom. I know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That was the best, like going somewhere, like nobody knew what was wrong with me. Nobody knew that. And I went back in the closet. Like I started acting more feminine when we transferred schools. My mom actually, she said, this is an opportunity for you to be normal. And I was like, this feels really bad, what you just said to me, but you're also correct. Like I can just simply lay low for the next 5 years. I was in the 8th grade when we transferred, and just get the fuck out of here. But they also didn't know that we were, trailer trash at the new school. They didn't have that there. Mm-hmm. It was a city school.
Yep. I had one other friend that lived in a trailer, and he had a single mom, and he still wows me to this day. He had a sister and his mom, and the three of them lived in that trailer. The sister became a literal brain surgeon, and he's an attorney.
Damn.
Yeah. Smartest kid, one of the smartest kids I've ever known in my life. And he worked his ass off, and he's doing just fine now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The chips that had to fall into place for me to make it out, it's a combination of grinding and luck to make it out of this like systematized quagmire of poverty in Central Appalachia.
I was the first one in my family to graduate from high school.
Yeah.
In the Lord's year of 1996. We should have had a few generations of high school grads by that time. Like I had an uncle that graduated and that kind of thing, but my mom and dad, my adopted father, none of them graduated from high school. Mark, my adopted father, he had a scholarship to go to Northwestern and gave it up and dropped out of school the last couple of weeks. He was valedictorian of his class. His parents' house burned down, and he decided instead of going to college, he was going to stay home and help them raise money to rebuild the house. And it changed the entire trajectory of his life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I wouldn't be who I am today if he had gone through and gone to college, It's so weird how little things like that, not little, those are big things, but they seem so small sometimes when we're making those kinds of decisions.
Well, I'm sure he understood that it was a big decision, but it's also...
He carried a chip on his shoulder the rest of his life.
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's why he couldn't handle me getting a PhD.
Right. Literally getting above your raisin.
Yep. I think if I had stopped at a bachelor and maybe even the master's degree, it would have been fine, but I had to go and try to be special. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why he felt the way he did. He said some pretty harsh things to me about all of it, and you can't take that shit back. You just can't. Mm-mm. But I've been through a lot of therapy, and it's all good now. So
well, and my parents knew that they wanted us to have access to college, and that's like... Talking about like those big things that may seem smaller, the frequency with which those appear to folks without access or resources or without like privileges or enough privileges, an assemblage of privileges, house burning down to somebody in a different tax bracket or part of the world. It's a tragedy. It sucks.
Our house burned down when I was 3.
Yeah. But for folks without insurance or access to resources, like when our house burnt down, the Red Cross offered us, I think, 3 nights in a hotel. They would cover 3 nights in a hotel. And I was like,
Wow.
what for? We said no. We got to start working on where we're going to be for the next who knows how long, as though there's a rental anywhere in the hills.
Right.
I think people don't realize also that that's why poor people are dependent and indoctrinated by the church, because it's the church that has the resources.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I grew up with a lot of religion in my family. My mother's father and my father's mother were both Pentecostal ministers. A lot of holy rolling and casting out of demons and speaking in tongues and all those kinds of things. I saw it when I was really little and was like, hell no. I remember very specifically, we were doing rounds in Sunday school and they were asking us questions to little kids and we all answered together in unison like it was some kind of lesson.
Yeah.
And they said, do animals have souls? And everybody else said no. And I was like, yes. And I maybe not even 5 at that point, but I started disagreeing with church doctrine that early. And that was the basis of my fuck y'all. Yeah, like I just couldn't get into it.
I was not introduced to it until I was much older. And again, we never went as a family. We went in Brick Plant Holler. There was a church there that we went to. The people who had the farm, when we would stay with them, we had to go to church. And so I was maybe like 10 or 11 when I got introduced to it. And it never entered my mind in a decision-making capacity, like in a way that would influence how I viewed myself or others or the world, until I started to realize there was something wrong with my gender. And the message was very clear to me. It was very prevalent in the church. Like, these are the ways that you do behave. And so I was like, I started to think I was going crazy. I was just afraid the devil was just going to come up through the floor and get me. And so I did go to a very restrictive church camp intentionally for a brief amount of time, because I thought maybe they can get this out of me. But I got there and I was just talking with the kids. They were like, what do you listen to? What kind of bands do you like? And I said Alanis Morissette. And they said, well, you're going to go to hell for listening to Alanis Morissette. And that's when I realized, like, oh, this shit's all fucking fake. This is all made up. I was like, you're telling me that God cares what CD I'm listening to the same degree as he cares about this ultimate sin thing that the preacher told me about my gender and my sexuality and who I want to love. I was like, that don't make no sense. That ain't real. That's some made up human bullshit.
Right.
So church camp cured me of being a Christian.
Yeah.
But that's also where I pretended to speak tongues, because I was determined to fuck with them the rest of the time I was there.
That's awesome. I wish I would have had the balls to do that. But I didn't want to go. Like, I remember my brother getting baptized in the middle of one of those weeks. And my brother was a badass kid. You know, he was mean. He was always getting suspended and in trouble for fighting, selling drugs, like doing all kinds of stuff. And he went and got baptized in the middle of the church camp. It was like, you are so full of shit. It's
like that scene in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Where he says, well, the preacher says that sin's been wiped away.
Yeah.
You said you didn't do that. Well, I lied. And that one's been wiped away too. There's a cheat code that we're all looking for to excuse the bad shit we do just because we're bad people sometimes. Well, maybe let's give the wheel of what have you a spin.
Okay.
Let's see what it lands on. What if it's church?
I got more.
That is a deep well.
Yeah, it's a very deep well.
Oh no, we landed on trouble. Trouble. Well, I suppose this can mean a variety of things.
I think I already told the story of me getting in trouble over the pizza, didn't I?
Yeah, pizza. You talked about the pumpkins. Did you ever get paddled in school?
Nope, never, not once. Elementary school, I was a 4.0 kind of student. I was, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't get my first B until high school. That's not true. I got a C one time because my teacher said I didn't turn in my homework, and I argued with her until she changed my grade because I turned it in.
I got paddled in the 2nd grade because that's when I started to have trouble understanding what was going on. And so I just didn't do my homework one day. And she fucking paddled me for it.
Wow.
Yeah. This is my very first time not doing my homework because I just got so frustrated and couldn't figure it out. And of course, nobody was around to help me.
Yeah.
And so I just
my brother got
paddled
a lot.
Yeah, my brother got paddled a lot too. That's some fucking crazy shit.
Our principal was a big old man too.
Mm-hmm. And they were so proud of, they would take a
wood burner.
Yeah. And like personalize them, put their names on them.
Etch their names in them and stuff.
They would name them something fucked up, drill holes in them so that they would move faster.
Yep.
and walk around with them.
Yep. Or mount them on the wall in their office.
I remember there was a strange shift too, like between elementary school and middle school. Because in elementary school, when you got paddled, they would bring you up to the front of the class and you'd have to bend over and like show your ass to the rest of the class, and they would paddle you like that. And you would get,
Oh, wow.
they would tell you how many you were going to get, right? And so depending on the transgression, you would get 3 or 5 or 10 licks with the paddle. But in middle school, once like we got older, they would take you out in the hallway and paddle you instead of in front of the rest of the class. And I don't know what that change was about.
Yeah. I don't know who did the paddling at my high school, but it certainly was not the principal. He was like 4'8" and looked like Mr. Magoo. He was like 100 years old. He called us whippersnappers in our senior assembly. It certainly wasn't him. It could have been the football coach, who was a big hulking guy. I could see them doing something like that.
It was the small, like, female teachers that a lot of people were scared of.
Yeah.
Because they were also the ones who would drill the holes in them so that there was no wind resistance. And then that, like, snap, you could hear when somebody was getting paddled, like, down the hallway.
Yeah. Fun times.
I think that's probably some fucking trauma for me, of like my obsession now with completing tasks. Like, what happens? Is Miss Crawford going to show up with a goddamn paddle if I don't get this email sent? I only got it once though, and this draconian bullshit was very Jellicoe. They didn't do this at my new school. There was no paddling. We had to write lines and we had to go to D Hall.
Yeah. I got detention plenty of times, that's for sure. Because if you were late to homeroom like 3 times, you got detention.
Yeah, 3 tardies was a detention.
Yeah, I got plenty of those. My senior year of high school, I almost didn't graduate. And if one of my best friends didn't work in the attendance office and erase a couple of my tardies, I probably wouldn't have. Because I had study hall the first 3 periods of the day. Who's coming in for that? Your senior year?
I think, we had such a small school, like you had to come no matter what. They would know if you didn't. We didn't come back from lunch one day, and I almost got suspended because I skipped school.
Yeah. Oh, we weren't allowed to leave campus for lunch.
We had to. There wasn't a cafeteria big enough. It was such a small school.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to. But we had a new high school that fit all of us really well.
Juniors and seniors were supposed to leave campus for lunch because they had to feed the rest of the school, because it was a K through 12 school. And so it's like, we've got to feed these children. Y'all are going to have to go figure it out yourselves. So that's why we all got jobs, because we all had to actually pay for food.
Yeah.
But yeah, we skipped one day, and that's the most serious trouble I ever got in at that school. Like, I didn't go to detention hall that often, but we skipped. We just didn't come back one day, and we didn't even do anything fun. We just sat at our friend's sister's house. I don't know. I didn't get in a lot of trouble in high school. I got in a lot of it in college.
I got pulled over one time and the cop made us pour all the beer out. I was in the back seat drinking, and my friend, she handed me over. We got pulled over and she threw a pack of mints at me. They were like herbal mints, and I threw one in my mouth, and the cop thought it was pills, and he was like, "What'd you hand back there?" And I was like, "This." And he was like, "Have you been drinking?" And I said, "No, sir, absolutely not." And I had like 4 beers at that point, and he believed me and made me drive
my
friend's
God.
car. Yeah, and I had to drive it like a block where he was behind me, and as soon as he like drove off, I pulled the fuck over and got out and let her, because she hadn't been drinking at all.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first time I went to jail, so we were going to school in Kentucky before we lived there. It was illegal. We recognized this, but my parents and the school knew about it because Kentucky had just changed how they did their standardized testing, and it was tied to state funding, and they were looking for people who were going to score high on this kind of standardized test. And for all the issues I had in the classroom, I was always in the 99th percentile of the TCAP. And so like they let us do it. They let us come up there. We didn't have to pay tuition. We used a fake address in town. I got a driver's license when I was 14. Or I got a learner's permit when I was 14, and I got a driver's license before I was 15. And so I was driving us to school in the mornings from Jellicoe, and I was not terribly good at it yet, but it's just somebody had to take us to school. And I got a ticket one day because I didn't know that you had to slow down when there was construction going on. So I got a speeding ticket, and I was doing like double. So it was a really expensive one. And so he said, you can pay this, which was more than I made in a month. Or you can go to traffic school for $40. And I said, okay, I'll go to traffic school then. But we lived on a mountainside, and so we didn't have a mailbox. And the address that was on my license was the physical address, because you can't put a P.O. box on a license. And so the state was trying to mail me shit about this traffic court or traffic class thing and I just forgot about it. and I didn't get pulled over again for years. I was a really good driver after several accidents forced me into being one.
Same.
Yeah, I'm a super great driver now.
Knock on wood, same. You won't catch me tailgating for nothing.
But 5 years later, I get pulled over for turning right at a red light in Richmond, Kentucky. And he comes and he gets me out. And this was in Oscar the Bitch, the little Geo Metro. My friend was sitting in the passenger seat, and he was done up like a punk. He was in a punk era, had this big old like mohawk and spikes out of his like shoulders and his collar. And he looked just fucking insane. I had dyed blue hair. I was wearing homemade blue jeans and like a checker shirt. I looked like a goddamn clown. Bright orange Chuck Taylors. And he says, "Could you step out of the car, please?" And I was like, "Sure, what's going on?" And he didn't say shit. He had this trainee with him. And she said, "Turn around, put your hands behind your back." And I was like, "Motherfucker, what's going on? What did I even do?" Because he was like, "No, I stopped you." And I was like, "No, actually." And he said, you can't turn right at that red light back there," which it did have a sign that said that at one time, but it was so old that it no longer said it. So it was just a blank sign hanging there. And I told the judge that in court. 2 weeks later, I went through there again. The sign was gone. But yeah, they took me to jail because of that. My license was suspended, and he was like, "Did you know your license was suspended?" And I said, "No, I wouldn't have been fucking driving if I knew that." And he's like, "I don't believe you. You get a notice in the mail when your license is suspended." And I was like, "Not if you're trying to send it to a physical address that don't have a box." And this was a weekend too. So I spent like 2 days in jail, and I knew I had done something wrong or whatever. I made an administrative error. But in my mind, I was like, what did I fucking do?
That's crazy.
Yeah. Next time I went to jail, I was doing something wrong though.
Yeah. Knock on wood, I've not had that experience. The only time I've been to a jail was either to pick up my brother or to tour it as part of the Girl Scouts, or when I worked at the Rape Crisis Center, I had to go talk to some people there a couple of times. My brother was a lifelong, his whole life he was getting in trouble. Mm-hmm. And one time he got into a fight with his girlfriend and he threatened to kill himself. So he drank some Mean Green. Do you know what Mean Green is? The dollar store cleaner.
The cleaner, yeah.
Yeah. And so they locked his ass up. They took him to Athens, the psych hospital in Athens, took him straight up there, and he got a psych hold for like 5 days. And there was a blizzard in the middle of all this. And we had bingo we were still trying to hold. So I got volunteered to go pick him up. Right. And so I took my mom's Jeep and I drove all the way to Athens. It was an hour away. And I pulled up, and the look on his face, he was just like, "Oh, Christ." Like, because it was me. He knew I was going to run my mouth about that. I mean, I sure did. It was wonderful. It was fun being smug. I will never forget the look on his face, though.
My brother bailed me out because I didn't have the money. He had already joined the military because he had gotten in so much trouble because he went in for felony forgiveness. Which I don't think they do anymore. I think it's illegal. It was probably illegal at the time, but he was in so much shit that the judge was like, "Well, you can go to prison or you could join the military." So he had money then because he was deployed and they were getting paid and he didn't need it. So it was just going into like a trust. And so he bailed me out. When he died, I still owed him that money. For whatever reason, that fucked me up so bad. And it was like $1,000, which is a lot of money to somebody with no money, but it is not a lot of money to somebody with money.
Yeah.
And it's immaterial to begin with. But yeah, I cleaned my shit up after the second time I went to jail because I was like, this is unpleasant.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad because I probably wouldn't have met you if you hadn't done that.
No.
So. You know, we've been friends for 12 years now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
2013.
Wild.
Yeah, imagine my surprise when I go up north to a fucking PhD program and there's another heel jack in there.
You can't take me anywhere.
You remember when they would have us introduce ourselves going around class and they'd be like, "Say where you're from." And I just remember every time I would say, "Well, my name's, and I'm from Eastern Kentucky." And people would get this look on their face like, "Good for you. And you made it all this way." Like, do you think that this is the great emancipated North? That this is where I've always dreamed of being?
Right. I like it here. They have a sense of humor about things. Like when, do you remember the Toledo Christmas weed? That whole thing that happened?
Christmas weed, yeah.
Yeah, and then when the steak and shakes, they have 3 of them. They shut them all down for the health department. Oh, people held a candlelight vigil in the parking lot that night. Like, they just, shit happens and they roll with it. And I appreciate that here.
It is actually pretty country there too. Like, it's... I think one of the highlights of my life occurred there, which is the Wood County Fair Combine Harvester Demolition Derby.
Oh, I wanted to go to that and never made it.
It's every year.
Yeah.
and it is fucking spectacular. Just modified, kitted out, combine harvester. It's exactly what it says on the
Now
tin.
you're speaking to my heart. A demolition derby.
It
like
is-
there is nothing. That's one of my most redneck traits is I love a good demolition derby.
Absolutely. Like once it's done, once it's decommissioned and it can't do its job anymore, it is up for grabs. Have your way with it.
Yeah, when we moved home, I had a neighbor that helped me with everything. He was a good old boy from up the holler, and he introduced me to these guys that I sold this to and those guys that I sold that to, and he helped me get my car fixed and, helped me find he came up with a stick and a helmet on to help me get a bat out of the house at one point.
Mm.
But he was a driver. He came in first place in one of the rounds. The demolition derby has like 15 heats or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
like they
all
go on
day.
all day. They started doing school buses too.
Oh hell yeah!
A school bus demolition derby.
There's an under 13s category where they use riding mowers because they'll only go so fast. But it is still like these are children driving riding mowers into each other.
Yeah,
as fast as they'll go.
Did you ever go to the fair drunk?
No.
I did that once we had a cheerleader that got pregnant. She was like the head cheerleader, and she had to do homeschool for a year, and she ended up graduating. And for whatever reason, she wanted to party with me and my best friend. So we got a bottle of Southern Comfort, and we drove it. Mike drove us around the hills, down Back Run and Miller's Run and all that. And we got shit-faced and went to the fair and had a good time. They're doing the Strawberry Festival for Lucas County next weekend, and I want to go, but people say that gun violence breaks out every year, and I'm like, well, I'm not going there now.
Yeah.
That is not a sense of humor to me.
I saw somebody get stabbed at the Black Swamp Festival one year that I lived there, and I just happened to be like outside smoking, and and there's always fights out there because Toledo and BG have some sort of turf war going on.
Right.
I happened to see like two dudes run up on this one dude in the middle of the street. It was so fast. And then he was laying there and nobody came out. And I was just standing there watching because I was fucked up and I wasn't going to go over there.
Right.
But I did eventually, I was like, okay, I'm going to call the police. It's going to be okay. And then I ran off.
Do you know the Kitty Genovese case?
No.
Oh, it's a very famous case, the bystander effect. Basically, she got murdered in New York City and 37 people heard it and some of them saw it and not one person called the cops.
Okay.
And it's the classic case when you're talking about bystander apathy. That case is what caused the foundation of the 911 system in New York City in the 60s.
Yeah. I mean, we'll just all assume the next person will deal with it.
Yep. Exactly. But the more you learn about the bystander effect, the less likely you are to be affected by it.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody listening will.
It's the opposite of the Dunning-Kruger.
Right. Never thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right.
So I did call the police and then, or I called an ambulance and then I ran off. I mean, in terms of trouble, I didn't ever go looking for it, but I just wasn't very smart. And I just did whatever I felt like doing because I never learned anything about how to be a moral or good person. So I was making that shit up as I went along. Yeah.
I came up after my brother, after my sister. My sister dropped out of high school at 16 and got married, and my brother got kicked out of every school around, and nobody in my family had finished high school even. I'm like the rainbow sheep of my family, a black sheep. My family was the black sheep family of the rest of the family, and I am the rainbow sheep of the black sheep. So, bye.
Well, now it seems like a good time for a word from this week's sponsor. This is current to the seasons because it is blackberry winter. This week's sponsor is Blackberry Picking Stick. It is blackberry winter in the hollers, which means it's time to get picking. This naturally occurring supplemental crop proliferates along every tree line, grove, and outhouse wall. Somewhere between landscape and nuisance in other parts of North America, Appalachian blackberries are a staple food item. However, sharp brambles and thorns aren't the only hazard. For hidden betwixt and among each patch is at least 10 to 15 copperheads, the way Mommy tells it. So here, take this stick with you. All you need to do is to remain safe from these venomous vipers lying in wait for your fleshy pink legs to happen by is to slap the bushes with your picking stick. This, Mommy says, is to give the murderous worms advance notice of your arrival and location. Don't worry, though. They're more afraid of you than you are of them. But take this stick anyway and make as much noise as you possibly can before you fill your shirt with the blackberry booty and hustle on home. This week's episode of Queer Next is sponsored by Blackberry Pickin' Stick. God, I liked picking blackberries because it was an easy job, but it was fucking painful. And I was, for real, scared to death of copperheads.
When we moved home, there was a copperhead nest in the driveway because they had not cut the grass in so long.
Mhm.
Everything kind of was going back to nature. And I drove down the driveway one day and the snake flew through the air. I wouldn't walk down the driveway again. I refused. If I was going down to Mamaw's house, which was like a 30-second walk down the driveway, hell no, I was getting in the car and driving down there because there was no. We bought snake repellent bullets and shot them all over the driveway.
What's a snake repellent bullet?
They have some kind of scent in them, and you put them around, and it's supposed to repel snakes. I don't know. We bought them off Amazon. We tried everything we could think of because we didn't want snakes anywhere near us. That's my big can't do it. I can kill a spider. I have no problem doing that, but snakes, my dad was the same way. One time I found a snake out. He used to keep the yard really well trimmed, and they had a pool out back, and I was out there with the kids one day, and I saw a snake. It was just a little garter snake. It wasn't very big, and I told Mark, and he came out with his pistol and shot the garter snake 3 times.
Arguably less safe.
He got it though.
Yeah.
As he sent a message.
That is something like Randy Quaid would do in Christmas Vacation.
Yeah. He was funny.
Damn.
Before he got to be a bitter old man, he was a really funny guy.
There was a lot of snakes around on the mountainside, but there was a lot of everything around on the mountainside, and we kept 20, 30 cats at any given time, and they would keep the snakes down. We didn't do it on purpose. They just came to live with us because there was snakes everywhere.
Our dogs would eat the cats, so we didn't have any cats. We had the dogs that were eating everything. But that was their job. My dad would feed them a hot dog every day. And that was all he would feed them. And the rest of the food they had to scavenge on their own. And when it got around time to do the yard in the summertime, they'd cut the grass and they'd find deer carcasses.
Damn.
And they'd find all jawbones of different things they'd find.
Yeah, I remember we like mowing, being like just constantly turning shit up, like the snakes. But the big threat for mowing was the hornet's nests because they were in the ground. Mm-hmm. And I remember one day, I fully thought my mother had lost her mind. I thought I thought I saw her have a psychotic break right in front of me. And it was terrifying until I realized what was going on. And then it was terrifying for what I understood to be going on. Because we were standing at the window in the kitchen doing the dishes. And we out the windows, we could see David pushing the push mower around on the sides. We saw all of a sudden he starts frantically flailing and doing this weird like twisting dance and stuff like that. And I did not know, I didn't put together what it was, but my mom then, she says, "God damn it." And she runs over to the cabinet where she keeps her cigarettes, and she opens a pack of cigarettes, pulls all 20 of them out, and sticks and bites them off. She bites off the tobacco part and just starts chewing really fast. And I was like, what in the motherfucker? Has everybody gone crazy? And then he came running in the house. And by the time he got in, she had chawed it all up to be like a wet mess and starts putting it on all the bites because he had run over a hornet's nest.
Oh, wow.
And they were stinging him like crazy. So in the time between him starting to flail like that, she realized instantly what was going on and chewed up a pack of cigarettes.
The things a mother will do.
Yeah. But he was sick as hell. He must have had 20 stings from those things.
Wow.
Yeah. And so she put them all on there as a poultice to draw the sting out.
What's the past way to say weed eat? Weed ate it? That doesn't sound right.
Weed whacked
it. Yeah.
Well,
he did something to it.
I do always say actually weed eated, but I do it. I have to like get my courage up to do it a little bit because I know it sounds stupid. And every time I do it, I'm like, somebody's going to say something.
Would you like to hear about today's nouns of interest?
I'm dying to hear about today's nouns of Appalachian interest.
All right, y'all. Welcome back to Nouns of Interest, that sweet little corner of queernecks where we get to gush about the people, places, and things that make Appalachian culture what it is: weird, warm, and a little greasy in the best way possible. Today's noun, the pepperoni roll. Now listen, if you are from Central Appalachia like we are, you already know this roll is a culinary, cultural artifact, a gas station delicacy, a lunchbox legend, a piece of edible history wrapped in soft white bread and stuffed with pepperoni. It is, in my completely biased opinion, the most queerly perfect food ever created. And here's why. It's deceptively simple. Just bread and pepperoni, right? But that simplicity hides its complexity, like so many of us raised queer in the hollers. You bite into one and suddenly it's all soft and meaty and comforting all at once. You didn't expect that emotion from a snack, but here we are. The pepperoni roll was born in Fairmont, West Virginia in 1927, dreamed up by Giuseppe Argiro, who clearly understood that coal miners needed something hearty that would survive underground hours in the mines. No refrigeration, no utensils, just dough and meat doing what they do best, keeping you going. It's the kind of food that doesn't ask for praise. It just shows up, like your great aunt who never says I love you, but make sure your tires are rotated. Can we talk about the 1987 USDA drama? That's when the U.S. government tried to classify the pepperoni roll as a meat product, and therefore subject to daily inspections and all kinds of red tape. The bakeries stood their ground, bless them, and they said, we will not cut this roll in half. We will not call it a sandwich. We have our dignity. And a senator had to step in and defend the integrity of the ye old pepperoni roll. That's how West Virginia it is. You think New York is pulling senators off the floor for a bologna sandwich? I don't think so. Even the military got wise and began packing pepperoni rolls into rations for the troops in the early 2000s, which makes sense. They're portable, they're calorie dense, and can emotionally replace a hug from home. What can't they do? To me, the pepperoni roll is Appalachian queerness in edible form. It's practical, a little overlooked, hard to define, and full of surprises. It's got roots in immigrant labor, working class grit, and quiet rebellion. And when you grow up queer in the hills, you learn to love these kinds of stories, the ones that survive, adapt, and make space for themselves, even when the world doesn't quite know what to do with them. So next time you're passing through West Virginia or anywhere near the old cold country, stop by at a gas station, grab a pepperoni roll, and take a bite of history. Just don't microwave it or you'll miss the magic. All right, that's it for this installment of Nouns of Interest. I'm Beck, still soft on the outside, meaty on the inside, and this has been your cultural carb loading for the week. Back to you, Ash.
I fucking hate you. You ever laugh so hard you start sweating?
My work here is done.
Oh, the pepperoni roll. I haven't thought about them in forever.
Because that's what West Virginians really want to tell you about. You can't go there without 14 people being like, you had a pepperoni roll yet? You know, you are. I like making them homemade. I don't like the gas station ones.
Yeah.
They're usually too dry for me.
Yeah.
I'm really picky about my pepperoni.
Well, and my mom was picky about the cheese.
Yeah.
Like she was a cheese hoe, you know.
Well, a true one doesn't have cheese in it. A true one is just pepperoni inside a roll.
Yeah, that's true. Then she would one for those.
I put in mine too.
I know. I'm like, you know, you can be a purist if you want to, and that's fine. But if in order to enjoy this thing, I'm going to put fucking cheese in it. Yeah. And it's going to be just melty, ooey gooey mozzarella, and you can kiss my ass.
Yeah. I get the pepperoni from the deli behind the counter, the big fat.
The big fat ones,
thin.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I get it real thin, but they're huge. And then I get frozen rolls from like Bob Evans or the Sister Schubert ones or whatever, and let them rise, and I just pop them in there and you just bake them and they're perfect. Mom
would get those Pillsbury Crescent rolls. So I think it's like supposed to be like croissant bread or something. She would get those and put the pepperoni and the cheese in them and roll them up. Mm-hmm. And fuck yeah. She'd just you take them to the kids or something and they don't have to come inside. You don't have to feed them. They're good. And you don't have to see them. Yeah.
Yeah. We had a lot of pizza rolls. My mom was always buying stuff like that.
I ate a lot of pizza rolls and a lot of those Totino's pizzas. Remember them? You could get them for like a 10 cents out of the freezer, the deep freeze at the grocery store. Cause
they're like $2.99 now a piece.
Fuck, really?
Yeah.
Damn. No, man, you could get 10 of them for $1.
Yeah. Yeah. They've made them a little bit bigger now, but then they raised the price on them. They were $1 a piece for a long time. God, you know you're poor when you know the history of the price of the Tostino's pizzas.
Yeah, we ate a lot of that.
Frozen burritos.
Not as much. We had a lot of pot pies.
Yeah. I still can't eat a pot pie to this
fucking
day.
Hate them.
Yeah,
oh, God. Just saying it just now turned my stomach.
What's the food that traumatized you?
Salisbury steak.
Yeah, the frozen kind or homemade?
It's frozen. Yeah, it's the jelly shit on it, and the texture. They're trying to tell you. You're trying to convince me this is meat, but it is not. I have had offal before. This is connective tissue. These are tendons.
Yeah. Mom made those all the time with mashed potatoes and corn. We ate it right up. We'd eat it with mashed potatoes and corn and bread and butter. The one that traumatized me was chicken noodle soup, Campbell's chicken noodle soup. Oh. To this day, I cannot even handle the smell of it.
It's too much. You know what, though? I learned that a lot of the stuff we were eating, it was a mix. Did you know that that's a mix? You're supposed to mix it with water?
Yeah.
We never did. We was eating it right out of the can.
Yeah, no, they made it right. But my dad was one of those people, you're going to sit there till you eat it kind of people. And I just hated it. I've always been weird, especially about tiny bits of meat, because you can't tell if they're real or not. And they've always just grossed me out. Yeah. And I just didn't like it.
It was objectively gross. Yeah.
Yeah.
My sister had a lot of issue with the textures of foods and things. They would make her sit there until she would be sick trying to shove this stuff down her throat. Eventually, they got a little softer on it. And I was like, all you have to do is make her a bowl of rice. She will eat the hell out of a bowl of minute rice. That's all you have to do. There was a lot of – they really wanted us all to be the same.
Yeah.
Did you know anybody who was left-handed that they made right with their right hand?
Shanna.
Me too.
Yeah. My mom was left-handed, and I have a niece and a nephew who are both left-handed. But the rest of us are all right-handed. But they let mom be left-handed, and she was born in the 50s. But Shanna was born in 1982, and they made her change from left to right.
I think that's actually I think that is an 80s thing, an 80s or 90s thing.
Well, there was a lot of stigma around it because it was considered of the devil.
They called it queer-handed where I'm from.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like queer, but pronounced queer. They still call being left-handed queer-handed.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think that's real Kentucky, though.
I have a niece and a nephew who are both left-handed.
A niece?
A niece. Yeah. I have 2 nieces and 3 nephews, and 2 of them are left-handed. That's a lot because, because my mom only had 3 kids, and none of us were left-handed, but 2 of the grandkids were.
Skips a generation.
Yeah, I guess so.
But not gay, though.
No.
I'm
the only gay until my cousin, we won't say her name, my cousin has a kid who's gay, but I'm the only gay that I know of.
I think it was easier to hide being gay than it is left-handed, personally. Yeah. I got a lot of cousins where I'm like, sure, that's your husband, okay. Does your beard have a name?
Yeah, not mine. Mine are all very straight. I can't think of anybody else who would even be close to being queer. It's of my 41 cousins. Though there was a few of them I never met because they died. I had an aunt that died before I was born, and all 4 of her kids in a house fire. So I don't know if any of them would have been. I'm actually named after one of those kids, Rebecca.
Can you tell us your social security number and your mother's maiden name too? Well, so tell us tweet at us or whatever it is. Tweeting's not a thing anymore. If you find us on Threads or Instagram at QueerNecks, or you can comment on our YouTube channel where we also have this show at QueerNecks.
Unless you're going to be hateful, then don't say anything at all.
Yeah, if you're going to be hateful, we'll probably just mercilessly mock you on air and dox you. Well, no, we won't dox you, but you really don't know what you're getting into until you try to step to a queer redneck. There's a level of silver-tongued devil cruelty that you will never, ever see coming.
Yep.
But yeah, let us know if you've had a pepperoni roll. Let us know what's something else?
If they have a blackberry picking stick.
Have you ever been blackberry picking and were you given a stick to ward off the cotton mouse? Have you had blackberry cobbler?
Oh, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
I want blackberry dumplings. Have you seen the recipe for that?
My mother makes the best fucking blackberry dumplings because her biscuits are so good. Her biscuit recipe is elite. I've never had anything like her. And they're really regular, right? Because even just trying to shape them in a certain way would ruin. She's all about the texture and the fluffiness. There's 2 methods for making dumplings, listeners, okay? There's the flat method, which is essentially a pasta, either an egg or just flour, noodle, pasta, square type thing. And then there's the method where you make your biscuit batter recipe and dollop it down into the bowl in syrup or broth or whatever it is you're cooking if you're making chicken dumplings. So that is the appropriate method, in my opinion.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. I'm dying to try them. So one of these days I'm going to get my hands on some.
Fuck yeah.
I've sent Shanna maybe 400 different recipes of blackberry dumplings. Maybe she'll get the hint.
Come on now. Right. Well, let us know if you've had blackberry dumplings. All right. Well, join us next time for QueerNecks. And hey, if you got a buddy who would enjoy some of our silly content, get them over here. Subscribe and like and all of that. We would like to know who you folks are and where you're listening from and what your maiden name is. Say hi to Mom and them.
Bye.